Okay, welcome everybody. Everybody all gung-ho from that presentation or presentations this morning? I mean, I'm fired up. I just found out last week that I was presenting today. And I started reading about the event, and so I'm staying all day. I'm turning off my email. Maybe I won't turn off my phone, but I'm not going to look at any email. So even though we'll talk about collaboration, I'm not going to engage in collaborative behavior while I'm at the conference. Go ahead and sit down, please. So today we're going to talk about effective tools to boost team collaboration and engagement. And let's start off with a couple of stories. Let's get this thing to work properly. Can you go ahead and go down? Okay, let's figure this out real quick.
It's downloaded to the computer.
There it is.
Okay.
What did you do? Use this,
Yeah.
this space. Okay, I'm going to tell a couple of stories. First, give you a background of my career. I've been working, 30 plus years now. So all project-based type work. I moved from Louisiana to San Diego in 1990, started working for a very large federal contractor. We had won a project with the Navy, $250 million environmental project, working at all the different bases throughout California, performing environmental cleanup. Well, in 1995, we were awarded $75 million worth of work. And the problem is we could not execute. All the work plans, all the planning was bogged down in regulatory reviews and reviews with the Navy customer, and just could not get into the field to perform the environmental cleanup. Now, with the government, if they award you money, what do they expect you to do? Spend it. Spend it. So it became a big issue. Now, my boss at that time was colonel in the Army, just an incredible leader, believed in collaboration, believed in people, believed in the customer, just making sure that we deliver to the customer. And he formed the Southwest Tiger Team, and that involved all the different project managers associated with the organization and also the Navy project managers. It involved the regulatory agencies, it involved the base personnel, and we went through just an amazing collaborative effort as far as brainstorming and what can we do to get into the field. In many cases, we did not have any processes. That company had won this contract, and we went from 5 people to about 1,000 in less than 6 months. So we had to fast track processes. We had to brainstorm on how can we get into the field faster. Now, the result of that is that we were able to sit down, brainstorm, coming up with very innovative ideas on how to accelerate the work, get into the field, start performing the environmental remediation, and ultimately spending those dollars. The next example was Hurricane Katrina. So the Tiger Team was back in '95. 10 years later is Hurricane Katrina. One thing that I've not mentioned is I could show you 5 business cards out of my wallet, but I've never quit in the last 25 years. It's always been new companies. It bought the company I'm with, and I stick around. Not everyone has, but I will stick around. With Hurricane Katrina, this is a new company. And this company is based out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And the owner is from Louisiana. About the bulk of the company is out of Louisiana. And when Hurricane Katrina hit, August 29th, 2005, as you're well aware, New Orleans flooded. So we had contracts with the Corps of Engineers and just mobilized an incredible task force throughout the entire country, and also utilized the subcontractors that were in Louisiana. And almost immediately they started pumping and removing the water from New Orleans into Lake Pontchartrain. That took an amazing amount of collaborative effort, team effort, in order to achieve that. Also associated with Hurricane Katrina was Operation Blue Roof. Sounds very official. That was actually it was a FEMA contract. And This was in Louisiana, Alabama, and Florida, and Mississippi. So all the southern states that when Hurricane Katrina hit, basically just blew the roofs off the buildings. The codes at that time certainly could not sustain the winds associated with the size of that hurricane. This project required that we hire workers from around those areas. We had to order materials. We had to get the project teams together. You had various project managers that led the effort, all the collaboration, all of the processes that had to be implemented in order to execute this work. Because this was going through just hundreds of thousands of homes. The next were the FEMA trailers, and these certainly have some controversy associated with them. But the FEMA trailers were also part of the work that we performed. So there was a whole team involved with managing and planning and then ultimately executing the FEMA trailers. So all the various folks that were out of their house because of flooding, they did have a place that they could stay. In many cases, the homes or the trailers were right in the driveway of the homes. In other cases, you had these little mobile home cities that were created. Both of these projects, there was a lot of collaboration. This is even before there were really tools at that time. I mean, some of these examples I'm giving you, especially back in '95, we just got email at that point. And we just, a couple of years earlier, had computers where each worker had a computer. Prior to that, I mean, there was no email, there were no computers, and you had your telephone, and you had meetings. But that is so important, is that even though I'm going to go into some of the tools that are available now and what I've been using in my own experience, man, just get the team together in a room and have fun. Come up with ideas to, you know, improve the process. What is the problem? What's the possible solutions? What's the root causes? And get the team together and just have dialogue. And that's one of the things I'm going to focus on in the next slide is, as project managers, I don't know how many of you are involved with actually managing the project, whether it's a process improvement or some other type of project, you know, what can you do? But again, just get together and engage and try to have some ground rules where folks are, you know, you really focus on the end result. Don't get focused on your individual posturing and I'm trying to do this and I'm going to stomp my feet. It really needs to be a team approach. Project manager is the key to that, absolute key to that. Next slide, please. Okay, what can you do? I mean, we always hear about leadership, and we certainly could have added 4 slides on this with a bunch of bullets. But this is some of the things that I experienced on some of those projects, especially early on in my career, some of those mentor-type leaders or project managers that I said, wow, I like how they're approaching this. I truly believe that you do have to, as a project manager, is define that vision. You know, what are the objectives? And that's going to not be what you think the objectives are, but it's going to be what the customer, the end user, the sponsor, what their objectives are. And then what is success criteria? What you're trying to do is you're trying to paint that picture with your team as far as this is where we're headed. This is the success that we're going to have. If you're a project manager, get out of the weeds. Okay, you have to be in the weeds at times, but get out of the weeds to make certain that you really are sharing that with your team, because you really want to inspire them where they're excited about the project they're working on. Why the project is important to the stakeholders is really part of that project vision. And you need to understand that, because especially when you're involved with a process improvement type project, you'll have so many stakeholders, you have end users, you have silos, you have folks that really don't want to change how they're currently doing their work because they like how to do it. So you got to, those are very difficult in dealing with these types of projects. As a project manager, every one of these bullets, I have seen the opposite, okay? I have seen the opposite, and it's not fun. So if you're a project manager, encourage the team to share ideas. They've got to be safe, feel safe in a conference room to share an idea. They got to feel safe to send an email out, share an idea, and no one else from the team, or even worse, the project manager, attacks with criticism, negative criticism on their idea. Why is that important? Because that will kill innovation. That will kill collaboration. It only takes one time for that to happen, believe me. Embrace process improvement. I worked with one project manager who said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I just never believed in that. I've always believed in process improvement. Not saying that I'm not happy with how things are currently being performed, but always driving towards process improvement. So think about it as a leader. If you have that mindset, if you encourage your team to share ideas, that's going to help you a lot. It really will. I think passion is important. You know, sometimes people will discredit passion. Oh yeah, passion, whatever. I think you got to be passionate. You got to enjoy it, what you're working on. You got to believe in the project that you're working on. Believe in helping that end user, customer, whomever that person is. Second, you want to build a team. When your team starts working for you, your goal at the end is they are going to be smarter, they will have learned, and they want to work for you again. And they're going to be happy working for you. That will make a big difference. And then finally, have fun. I struggle with this sometimes because all these government projects we work on, it's like, oh my God, the process is just ugly until the very end, and just it magically gets fixed because there's just so many little things that are taking place. Yes, we created a risk register, but still there's a lot of problems that are happening during execution. So what I try to do is just don't be negative during the process. Try to be upbeat, get your team engaged, involved. That way you can share ideas, collaborate, and hopefully come up with the solution. Anybody have questions on some of these slides or these bullet points? Anyone want to add to this? Give me a chance to drink some tea.
How about communication?
Yeah, without a doubt. And you know, if you think about it, a lot of those are soft skills, and that's what communication is. Good point.
One thing I would probably add to that is in this current state of our social media and all the attention that we put on emails and phone calls, you know, in business world, we've really gotten away from that face-to-face dialogue anymore.
Yeah.
So you're always finding yourself not sure if you're communicating on the same page because you don't, when you're face-to-face, you can read people's body language and you can make sure you have follow-up questions. But kind of where we are now, it's an email, it's a text, it's this, and a shared document, and off you go.
Yeah. I think one of the ways you can address that if you're a project manager is just have some form of team building early on. That way everyone gets together, meets each other. Because I saw it last week on one of the projects I'm involved with where, you know, just the communication, each side was just not listening to each other. They had their own agenda that they were focused on. So, I mean, there's entire courses on communication and listening and engaging with your team, but that's an excellent point. So again, if you're a project manager, try to get the team together, you know, minimum once, absolute, one time at least if they're spread across all over the place. Okay, one of the things that we are going to talk about in this presentation is just some of the collaboration tools that are out there. And as I was preparing for this presentation, I found out that you guys have Microsoft Teams at UCSD. There's also another tool that you guys are using that I'm not familiar with. But what I'm going to do is just kind of give an overview, at least what my experience has been, and then also go into a little bit more deep dive in Microsoft Teams. I've been using that software, or that, it's not really a software, I guess, but I've been using that cloud-based collaborative system for about only 4 or 5 months, and I'm really impressed. So that's what I want to share, at least what I've learned in that brief time. So some of the things that we've seen just exploding in the last few years, there's so many options for collaboration and the tools, whether or not it's creating documents like Dropbox, the Trello, which is the little card action items. You've got SharePoint, which is a web-based or Microsoft file management system. You can create documents also. GoToMeeting, it's all online type meetings similar to WebEx. Google Drive, I'm using that in a course that I teach at UCSD Extension. I teach a project planning course. Slack, I've not used Slack before, but that's kind of that communication thread. Anybody using Slack here? Okay, like it? Yeah. Cool. So if I go back looking at when I started using these various digital tools, it's about 2010. I started using Microsoft OneNote. Anybody using OneNote? Oh, what are you using now?
Evernote is another one. It's on. Yeah,
Great. 2010, I started using. Oh, that was good. Let's give a clap. Because I didn't know what to do. So back in 2010, around time frame, I started using. No, let me back up. 2005, I started using OneNote, and then 2010, I switched to Evernote. And the reason I switched is because I could access the notes via my tablet, my phone, my computer, and at that time, OneNote was not as effective. So again, a lot of what you use is based on, what's easy and allowable within your own organization. So the companies I've worked for, I couldn't use the majority of these tools with the exception of SharePoint. Evernote, I couldn't create a team collaboration notebook. It was just kind of me taking notes. So your organization in many instances constrains you on what you can and cannot use from the standpoint of these collaborative tools. Next slide. So some of the key features that we're seeing out there on all of the tools. So, the ability to store and sync. You want to have that synchronization feature just so you make sure that you have version control. One of the things that kills collaboration is document or version control is not effective. People get upset when they realize that they're working on the wrong document. It's not the latest and greatest document. So you want to make certain within your organization that processes are sound and folks are using the most recent document. You have that version control. I've seen situations, my projects are construction projects, where they're using the wrong drawings. Imagine what that is like. The ability to create documents. Now you've got the ability to have different team members editing the document at the same time. I'm using Google products, Google Suite, in the course that I teach at UCSD Extension. And some of the students have used it, some have not, but they love it because they're able to create the document at the same time. I like it because I can go in and make comments, whether it's from my phone or tablet, and the students see those comments via an email, and they make those updates. When I started teaching, we were still using paper. So I like this a lot better. The ability to manage the project team, whether it's action items, there's different tools out there. From a project management standpoint, you can't get away from having a schedule and actions or your team managing or defining what those actions are. At the end of the day, you have to be able to track that. Be able to have any type of reference documents or just organize any documents within the organization. And then communication and social, whether it's email or the new messaging type like Slack uses. This is all what you're seeing now on these various tools, which we saw on that previous slide. Next slide. Before I go into a little bit more deep dive into Microsoft Teams, I just want to talk about mind mapping. How many folks are mind mapping in here? All right, one guy. I like that. Okay, you guys and everybody here works at UCSD? Except you. Okay, I see a trend. So, you guys have access to mind mapping software through ChartPro, maybe? Is that what it's called? So you have access to this tool in a software that you have access to. So Angela Cook, who I've worked with before here, she had mentioned that to me when I met with her last week. So I want you guys to try the mind mapping software. It is one of the most effective tools to brainstorm with your team or yourself and come up with ideas and see those relationships and see the big picture or drive down into the details. I've been using mind mapping for about 10 years now. This is what I teach in the class at Extension. I teach the students how to use this tool for project planning. So in this example, just a couple of weeks ago, I was up in Seattle, Washington. We have a project at a Navy base up there, and we were having some quality issues. So I flew up there, sat down with the team, figured out what was going on. And I was working through that. I created this mind map. And certainly you could add some additional topics to it, but I come up with process, the problem, objective, options, solution, and then the plan being how do you execute it? What's the scope, the schedule, and cost, if there's cost associated with that implementation. So under the problem is a problem statement or statements, and then some of the root causes. So we got in the room and talked with the team, and again, all of this so much is soft skills, because one of the subcontractors, I made a statement and his face went into these gyrations of disagreement. And I just had to coach him through it. I said, look, it's okay if I say something you don't agree, but we got to be focused. We've got to be professional. Focus on the end result, which is delivering a quality product to the government, to the Navy. And that just goes so far to get the teams away from just thinking about themselves. Focus on that big picture. And then the objective. What's the objective of this solution? And what is the success criteria? How will we know that we are successful, our solution? Are we going to have metrics? What are the metrics that are going to define success? Options. What are some options that we could brainstorm? So I did not expand all of these, but I did expand the solution. So anybody familiar with the Corps of Engineers three-phase control process? Anybody? So it's all construction stuff. So whenever you're getting ready to perform work, you have to have a preparatory inspection. You identify key features of work. So you sit down with the government, you have a preparatory inspection, and you confirm that you're ready. And then the initial inspection is when you just start performing the work, and you verify that the work meets requirements, and you verify the workmanship. And then every day you have follow-up inspections. So what we did is we said, okay, we're implementing this, but we need to refine the process. There's got to be some improvement on how we're doing it, because we determined that was one of the key issues on why we had this problem, is we needed to refine that process. So again, if I expand all these little plus signs, I've got just a bunch of content there that was created, again, with the team, the subcontractors, the third-party inspector, and refined that. And at the end, I exported that into Microsoft Word, created a really nice bullet list of the process improvement. So I encourage each of you to try mind mapping. It's an incredible tool. Again, if you don't know where you need to head or how you're going to get there, and you start with that blank sheet of paper, this tool is going to help you get there and work with the team.
It's really Lucid Chart. It has mind mapping too.
Yeah. What are you using?
Lucid Chart.
Lucid Chart. That's what you're using. That's what you have access to, I believe. And have you been using the mind mapping?
I've been using mind mapping recently.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I'm kind of learning, because we have to map out a process.
Yeah.
With 3 departments involved, and they're like data entry repetition.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to jot down. I talk to different teams, and basically jot down what everybody's saying, so I get an idea what each different teams are.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, good.
And I'm learning at the same time.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, huh?
Right.
Okay, any other questions on the mind mapping?
Microsoft Excel has templates too. So just type in mind mapping and it has pre-made little squiggly lines and it'll, automated lines and graphics. So.
Yeah, great input, but the software that's out there now is so much more powerful than you going through the Excel route. But if all you have is Excel, then go with Excel. If you don't have a software, which I think you do, use the sticky notes. I mean, that slide that I showed with the sticky notes, I mean, that's in effect is mind mapping techniques. Just the software is a software approach to it. Okay, so Microsoft Teams, in this day and age where folks are spread everywhere, you're not in the conference room, that happy conference room where everyone's having a great time and being innovative, and you're having to deal with folks from different campuses or different offices, whatever the situation may be. You have Microsoft Teams through Office 365. So if you're currently using email and file servers to create content, this is just a different approach. And I do encourage you to try it. It works pretty good. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a mock-up screen. It's not going to be from one of my current projects. It's just going to be a mock-up of a solar panel project. That's the case study that I use or present in my course that I teach. So with this mock-up, I'll show you how you could set up Microsoft Teams, both from collaboration and then from a project management standpoint. So that's what I also want to share with you guys is some of the things that you could do, features you could use. So we'll talk about conversations, meetings, files, the notebook, tasks, issues, change control. You can see that these are more the project management side of the house. So to start off with, this is the main page of Microsoft Teams. In Microsoft Teams, you access it through Office 365. Probably could have shown a slide on that. On the left-hand side, activity. If that's a little dot, that's telling you you have a message. Someone has direct messaged you within the platform. You also have a chat feature, which is very similar to Business Skype now, but in this case, it stays within the platform. Click on Teams would list all the various teams that you belong to. So in this case, I just have this is my own personal account. I just have my solar panel project. Now, in the case of my office, I've got, I don't know, about 10 projects I'm working on. Meetings, and then files, you click on files, would show all the most recent files that you've been working on. Even though they may be in various folders on other team sites, it's going to show you all the various files. The next one, again, is going to show you the projects that you belong to. Now, these are called channels. That was close. These are called channels. What I've learned is you get general by default, and just leave it at that. Don't work that much in the general tab. I'm thinking in the future I would use it as, you know, there's a party next week, or, you know, just things more like social type for that project. Now, what I've done here that I have played around with, and I'm thinking this may work. So again, coming from a project management world, and also, you know, as an instructor, I try to implement what I'm teaching. I'm following that PMBOK process groups. So we've got planning, executing, and monitoring and control. And I'll show you what I've done within those channels. The next little yellow bar shows the tabs that you can create. When you create a team site, it's going to default and give you conversations, files, and wiki pages. You can see I've added task list, a notebook, and there's 2 more in the drop down. And we'll talk about those. We'll start off with files. The backbone of Teams is going to be a SharePoint site for that project. I've been using SharePoint since 2005 approximately, and it's always been the SharePoint server. So with the SharePoint site that you get with Cloud Office 365, to me is very similar to Google Drive. It's really focused on creating content. Some folks like to create a lot of metadata associated with a SharePoint file. Anybody using SharePoint here? Do you guys have a lot of metadata or not a lot of metadata? When I say metadata, you know, data entry when you upload a file. It varies, huh? I would say if you're creating content, minimize the amount of metadata. You just don't need it. And it upsets people that they have to enter all that information that it's like, well, why is that useful for me? I'm not going to need it. So just be cautious and do not create all this metadata or columns as part of content you're creating. You get a Microsoft SharePoint site with that team site, so that's specific to that project that you're working on. And if you're using a, you know, if you're within a department and you're creating process improvement type various initiatives, maybe what you would do is that these could be, channels could be the various process improvement initiatives that you're working on. So you could have a team site and you would just have the various channels. That could be an option. That could be an option. You'll notice execution right here, execution right there. These are the files that are within that execution folder on that SharePoint site that's created. So it pre-builds the file structure for you, and it's based on what you've set up within your team. Within SharePoint and Office and Word online, you can all be in the same document at the same time. Now, some folks think that's a great idea, and some folks not so. But you have that option. So in the past SharePoint server, you had to check it out, you edit it, you checked it back in, then you send an email to your friend and say, hey, I'm finished, or maybe you had workflow that would let them know. But in this case, you can work on documents online, or you can use your desktop Word to edit a document, an Excel file, whatever it may be. Monitoring and control. So if you guys have taken any of the project management, this is when you're analyzing the data as you're performing the work, comparing it to your baseline scope, schedule, and cost, and make a decision. Are you on track? And if you're not, what do you need to do to get back on track? So some of these processes that I've included as folders would be scope control, quality control, cost control, schedule control. And again, that is where reports would be uploaded, collaboration with your team. As an example, under schedule control, within these government projects, we have to submit invoices, we have to have accruals, etc. So that's a review process with our financial folks. So that's where that's taking place now, versus in the past, emailing it back and forth. These tabs give you the option of adding additional content. I mentioned earlier that you get wikis, you get the files, and you get the conversation. But in the case of the tabs, you can add Excel, you can add OneNote, you can add a planner, you can link to your SharePoint site, and I'll show you some of those examples. Kind of, in summary, if you think about Teams, the Teams is that it's almost like a central platform where your team is going to, and everything about that project is within that platform. And you're not going with emails, you're not having different folks having their own folder structure on their computer. So the approach or the benefit ideally is you don't have duplication of efforts. Everybody's working on the same file. Everybody understands what the actions are. Everybody understands what the issues are, and it's all within that same platform.
Question.
Yeah.
So when you're working with like exterior entities, let's say you're bringing all these different people together, right? Are you, as the creator of the team, issuing out a license for Office 365, or do they come with it? Like they, sorry, in order to be part of our team, you need to have Office 365 and have a license, or because otherwise you're missing two people on the team. They're not part of this, and you have to do external stuff.
You are able to add folks externally with 365, and then we have other tools that we're using for more of the construction drawings and specifications. Those tools are licensed per year, and what we'll do is we'll give we'll pay for those licenses for subcontractors for the external team. But that that has been my struggle within the organization, is there was never a tool that was free to the customer. So SharePoint, you can add the external users, and then they're able to access the document. So within Microsoft, the answer is yes. So that helps. I want to show you some of the tabs. So in this slide, Planner, right here, they create these cards for task lists, and I've enjoyed using these. I've struggled with assigning tasks because of just, is it an Excel spreadsheet? I've tried SharePoint List. I've tried Evernote, and then just conveying to the team. Sometimes I forget that I gave the action, and 3 weeks goes by, it's like, oh God, I forgot about that, and they haven't worked on it. So You know, there's some real struggles I've had just being so busy, but I like this approach with MS Teams. So you assign a task to somebody. This is the pop-up, the data entry. You can see due date. You have a description. You can add a checklist of, you know, sub-tasks associated with that task. And you can even, which I don't show, you can enter a message to them that when you send it, they receive it as an email. And I did that the other day. You know, I assigned a task to one of the workers, one of the team members, and I just sent them an email saying, hey, can you give me a status on this? And we got on the phone and we talked about it. So this I'm impressed with. Anybody struggle with just task management?
I wasn't aware this was in there. I used Trello. It's real similar.
This is similar to Trello. Now, what you can also do is you can import. One of the options in the tab is Trello.
Okay.
Yeah. So Microsoft has done a good job in embracing the world, and they're actually products better than what they create. And I think that's good. So now you're seeing some very powerful app versions of this on your phone, whether it's an Android or an iPhone. So I've got on my phone Planner, I've got OneNote, I've got Teams, and I can review these actions. I can take notes. I've been in my favorite coffee shop and I have a conference call, so I go into my car and I'm taking notes within OneNote. And then boom, share it with the team. Question?
So with these types of tools, how do you mitigate alert fatigue?
I've turned them off. And we're experimenting with the communication tools, the conversations like the Slack. I have just barely experimented with that, but it hasn't been bad yet. But I agree with I understand your question. You have to be careful. You know, you're probably better off just reviewing the actions in a meeting rather than have people get 50 extra emails. So you do want to be cautious on these tools that you don't add to the emails. Okay, change control. So again, that's an important part of project management. When you see that there's a potential change, you just want to track it. So at this point, I just created in SharePoint a simple list that I have some columns and I enter the change order. One of those could be a link that sends me to the folder that's on SharePoint where we're collaborating on creating change order documents, whatever those may be. So I really like that also. Again, you can really implement the project management, documents via this single platform.
So the PMBOK, talks about the change control, but it doesn't really describe, I don't think, who is part of the change control board. Do you use one?
We use a change control board from the standpoint it's the business line managers. Okay, we talk to the program manager, we talk to the business line managers, we have monthly reviews. So we don't necessarily have someone gives you their card and saying they're part of the change control board. It's not that formal, but a PM can't just decide that it is a change or they're going to, complete the work.
What's the formality to determining, okay, this is an approved change? It's just the sign off on a piece of
Yeah, but PMs also have within every organization is different, but approval authority. Approval authority to expend dollars that I don't own is pretty low. If I have budget and I've got a schedule and I have scope, it's very clear. I go perform that. But you got to be very careful on changes. Changes are good though because you just got to track them. The digital notebook is excellent. I really like using the digital notebooks. I've been using, again, Evernote for a while. I started OneNote initially. How many folks are using digital notebooks? Not that many. Wow. Try it, guys. I don't know how much you travel or how much, maybe you don't want to think about work on the weekend, but it is nice to have all that content on your phone or your tablet, and everybody has that same content versus everybody independently writing notes. It's a central team collaborative effort where everything is transparent, really. Skype, you've got GoToMeeting, you have Google Hangouts, and then Skype has all of those now. So that's part of Office 365. And then Zoom. I think they're using Zoom for this presentation. So that's just another version. I mean, I do these types of online meetings in my class, but not that often at work. You know, mainly just conference calls. Rarely do we get on a phone where we're all waving to each other and talking. It's mainly just conference calls. That ends the demonstration, and I'm wrapping up on time pretty quick. For some reason, I thought I wrapped up at 11 because you tricked me. But business leader, how many person is a department head here? A business leader? One? You are? Okay, listen to me. All right, you've got to be a champion. You've got to be a champion of process improvement. You've got to be. I've been in organizations where they're not, and that stifles innovation.
We're definitely behind, and so this is like a lot of the processes what you're talking about. We're actually working on.
Oh, fantastic.
Very helpful.
Encourage company innovation and collaboration. You got to do that. Because every one of these bullets I've seen opposite. Simplify. Try to simplify. Get rid of those big silos, the bureaucrats where everybody is posturing because it's their procedure. You got to get rid of that. Simplify procedures, eliminate bureaucracy. Define the project benefits for the customer and team. Get everyone energized in that. This is my problem with process improvement in the past. I was giving this little presentation to my friend the other day. So this was my strategy when I was younger. Came up with SharePoint. Oh my God, SharePoint's incredible. Look, I've got a new way to do something. It's a lot better than your way. It's not going to save you any money. You're going to have to learn how to do it. And it's better, believe me. That's hard. You know, what's interesting is I'm always trying to come up with a new process or improve. The one thing I did in the last year that really got embraced by everybody is I created safety training videos. I suddenly had the skill of creating videos because my class is online. So I have a recording studio at my house. So we have about 80 slides that the guys in the field would have to present to subcontractors because it's an OSHA requirement to give project orientation. So I created a video and they put it on their computer, on the little monitor, and they don't have to do anything. Or we send it to the subs in advance and they watch the videos before they show up. That one thing, I'm a hero. And you want to know why? Because I saved them time. I eliminated something that they had to do. And they didn't like doing that. So I learned a lot from that. I wish I'd have learned that 25 years ago, but it's never too late. Embrace user feedback. And, you know, again, you want to encourage it. You want to embrace it across all departments. Notice a lot of these are similar to the project manager because the project manager is the leader. So it's very, very similar. The one thing I do want to say is you're a project manager. Even if you don't have a business leader that has these characteristics, have them because it's your team. You're going to build them, have fun, be innovative, be creative. Don't be the business leader that doesn't believe in innovation and collaboration. Because if you come across to your team like that, you're done. You're not going to get anything from them. So just remember that. I teach a class at UCSD Extension. I've been teaching for 10 years. In the last 2 years, I've been teaching an online class. If you guys want to learn about some of these great things, not only collaborative tools, but also project management, planning, and scheduling, and using mind mapping techniques, take my class. It's online. We have team projects. We use the Google Suites, the S in there, Google Hangouts, and we have weekly conference calls, which I think have been very effective with the teams. Questions?
Is it just called project planning course?
Project planning and scheduling. I also have my email address right there. I don't know if it's on the program, and if you guys send me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to help out in any way. I love being around the university. Just hanging out. It's fun. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
I just want to say this this presentation will be recorded. will be on the Process Palooza website within 1 week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Was this